Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very privileged to have Miss Vanessa here. She is not only an entrepreneur, but she's an author as well. And we're going to get to know her and have a great conversation. So, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to make this as short and sweet as I can. Basically, as a child, I was the last of three kids, and I've struggled to know where exactly fit in because I grew up in a very competitive, go-getting kind of family. My siblings were into sports and art, and they were also good in school. And for me, I was like, is there some magic pill I'm missing? Like, how are they having it so easy and I'm struggling? And so it took me a while to figure things out. I moved from one school to the next, and making friends was also very challenging.
Mm.
And when I went to boarding school when I was 13, something switched. It was like who I was before changed because, I struggled to fit in because I was always constantly around my parents and my family, and I was trying to be like them. But then when I went to boarding school, I had to figure things out for myself. So there I was, I had no entertainment. I had nothing, just my thoughts and myself. And I started writing, and it became so easy for me. It's funny when I think about it now. I actually wanted to write a continuation of Power Rangers because I was obsessed as a kid.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm away from TV, I'm away from television, I'm away from my friends. So I know your continuation story about Power Rangers. And, there were these five kids who went on an island. I still remember the story vividly because when I was writing it, that was my inspiration. And eventually, when I finished the book, it was like about 30 pages, like a simple notebook. My friends were surprised because they're like, what, you wrote this by yourself? You didn't steal it from a book? I'm like, no, I'm not a thief, And I don't know, something switched because I was like, wow, this might be my calling. Like after everything I've been through and all the struggles I went through, this might be something that I'm actually good at. So, I went on this journey of discovering myself, and it took a while. Eventually I went to college because I was like, okay, the writing thing doesn't pay. I don't want to be like a starving artist who, has no food in the refrigerator. So, I went to college, and I hit rock bottom when I was 22 because I lived with these people who were not the nicest. And my self-worth just plummeted. It just went onto the ground. And then I was in this place I never thought I would be at 22 years old. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what my worth and my value was. And I had to pick up the pieces again because I was depressed for the longest time because I was like, okay, these people told me that I'm terrible. I am an awful human being, and I believe them. So when that happened, I had to find who I was again, which wasn't an easy thing. And well, when I was 27, that was when I was like, okay, I had managed to figure out the pieces. Along the way, the funny thing is, along the way from 22 to 27, I found out I had ADHD.
Mm.
And it seems weird when I say it now, but that changed my life for the better because it made so much sense. Like all the struggles I'd been through, not fitting in, struggling with school, having weird tendencies of, like daydreaming in class, like every single thing that I'd been through made sense. And at 27, after I discovered what it meant now to have ADHD and how I could actually move forward, that was when I wrote my first nonfiction book and I published it. Sure, it wasn't a raving success, but the process for me was like, for me, it didn't matter if it was a success or not. What mattered the most was I had gone from a place of being depressed, because I was depressed from 10 to 22.
Mm.
So I've gone from struggling with depression to loving myself and seeing and having self-worth and confidence. And I was at the end of the long bridge, So Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a snippet. And then a year later, I started my business, helping people find their passions and their callings and figure things out and, build a business they love and live life on their terms.
It's
Yes.
amazing how when we feel like we're broken, that's
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can actually pinpoint the exact moment, but there's so many things that happened in my childhood that made me
Mm,
feel that way. You know,
yeah.
I was molested. I want to say it was between 6 and 8,
Yeah.
and then I had cousins that would pick on me, and it wasn't
Mm,
out of having fun. It was malicious.
oh my
And
gosh.
and then the kids that picked on me, it broke me, it really did. And I
Mm,
lost all confidence. I didn't want to be here anymore. uh,
yeah.
you know when I was in excuse me, in high school, my freshman year, and I've never told this story before. So
Mm,
I I was in class, and I remember we could order these cups, and the cups had different football teams and things on it.
yeah.
And so I had this cup, and I was in art class, which was my favorite class, but also my most hated class, because there was one guy in there that picked on me so much that
Mm,
I would wake up, tell my mom I didn't feel good just so I didn't have to face it. But this one day, he picked up that cup. He says, "Hey, I want to look at it." I didn't want him to, but I let him, and he blew his nose in it.
oh my word.
And I mean, that was so embarrassing. It was so devastating. I,
Yeah.
that was another moment where I just wanted to end it all. There was so many of those moments. I don't
Mm,
know. It followed me. All these things followed me throughout the years. I was depressed from
yeah.
a child up in, well, I mean, I still deal with it, but I deal with it a lot better.
Yeah.
How is it that we can go through things like that, feel like we don't belong in the world, and yet we can turn around and try to help other people? It's amazing. How do you do it?
Uh, you know, I relate to what you're saying that, you were bullied. When I was a kid, I went through that as well. Mine
Mhm.
was more emotional, because I felt like I was stupid for the longest time because I wasn't as talented as my sister or as athletic as my brother, you know. And when I would go to school, school was also very competitive because all the kids around me seemed to know who they were and what they wanted to achieve in life. And then I was just there. And I remember thinking to myself when I was 8, why am I here?
Mhm.
What is my purpose? Like, am I just here to rot, like, live life and then eventually rot, like, in a grave or somewhere? That,
Yep.
and that's a deep thought for nature. But I was thinking, I was like, what is my purpose? And at 10, I felt like I couldn't really fit in anywhere, like I was saying. And it was so hard because everyone I was around was good at something. And I wasn't. When I mean I wasn't, I really wasn't. I tried everything: sports, art, school, nothing stuck. But, I think the older I got, when I started figuring out who I was and what my purpose was, and when puberty, I came into myself when I was like, a teenager
Mhm.
because I didn't have anything to prove anymore. I mean, when you're kids, you still want to prove things, but I
Yeah.
wasn't comparing myself to my siblings anymore, which was a huge difference because I could literally do anything and be anyone and not try to be like, oh, well, maybe I should try hockey or basketball like my siblings or tennis. But, you know, when I grew up, I realized, like, I think it was when I was 21, when I realized how life was so precious and valuable. The high school I went to, there were kids who, every year, there were 2 kids who died.
Mm.
When I was 17, one of my friends, like I was in a boarding school, so she was like a sister to me, and she died. It was sudden. It was one of those things where she was here one moment and there and gone the next. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, wow, I have to make a difference in life because life is so short. I think that was the turning point for me because that was the person, like, I can't say I lost relatives, but I was never really close to my relatives outside from my family. But this girl was like a sister to me. She was like an appendage. And when she died, that wrecked me.
Yeah.
I was searching for answers. I was like, why? I mean, I was so angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at God. I was angry at every single thing because I was like, this person was such a beautiful individual and she was here one moment and now she's gone. So I had to figure it out. I was like, okay, this is life. People die. But because of what I experienced, I didn't want anyone else to feel like they did not have a purpose or calling or to feel like they were alone. Because at the end of the day, we all question why we're here. We all question what our purpose is and if there's a purpose or if there's a plan, because I was talking to a lot of people, and a lot of people, the reason why they're sad and depressed and struggle with life is because they feel like they're a mistake.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought I was a mistake. I thought my parents were better off without me. When I was 22, after I hit rock bottom, and I barely speak about this, but it was at the end of the road kind of moment because, after those people I was living with, they crushed who I was. I remember picking up painkillers and saying to myself that maybe the world would be a better place without me.
The feeling.
Yeah, right. And the one thing that stopped me was talking to my sister. And I said to her, am I a bad person? Is the world a better place without me? And I'd never been, like, I was depressed, but I'd never gone to that stage of really like ending my life. And at that moment, that's what I wanted to do. And the funny thing is, people don't talk about this. Well, it's not funny, but it's strange that people, when it comes to mental health and suicide, there's such a stigma around it. People think that, depressed and suicidal people, they are always depressed or always suicidal. Sometimes you can be borderline where you look normal. You're not going around and, you're not stuck in your room and not showering for days. I mean, there are people like that, but there are also people at the end of that spectrum who look normal, but they're struggling with all these internal, emotions and thoughts, and they feel alone. And for me, I'm just like, where I am now, I want to make sure that I inspire people that you're not alone. There is hope at the end of the tunnel. There is that light. You might feel like you're a mistake. You might feel like you have no purpose. You might feel like you have no calling, but we all have it. It just means you just have to search deep within and find it.
Yeah. There were so many times I felt so different. Like I had no place in this world.
Yeah.
I started abusing alcohol and drugs at a very young age. I was about 12.
Oh, wow.
And at first it was something to try to fit in with the other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got it was a way to cope with my feelings. And then it just got to be, I felt like I needed it.
Yeah.
And it took me hitting rock bottom. And it's the story for so many people. You hit rock bottom before you realize I need to get away from this stuff. But,
Yeah.
Like you, I was when I was a teenager, I had an accident at work, and I got a bunch of pain pills,
Mm,
but I actually took them all. I took a whole
oh my
bottle,
word.
and
Yeah.
I did. Nobody was home, and I didn't think anybody would find me. But somebody happened to come home, and I actually was living with some friends because I had a pretty big fight with my dad. But
Mm,
they came in and they found me and got me to the hospital just in time. I
yeah.
wouldn't be here. You know, I've had that pistol to my head. You know,
Oh my word.
there's I've put myself in situations to get hurt, even at work. You know, I work for the water department, and
Yeah.
when you dig a hole so deep, you're supposed to put shoring up so it doesn't cave in on you.
Yeah.
I'd have sometimes 6 feet above me with no shoring and just jump in and work and hoping that
Mm,
it would fall in on me. I don't I don't like that feeling, and I don't want anybody else to feel that feeling, which is why I do this show. It's why I'm open. It's why I tell these stories. They're embarrassing, but
yeah.
somebody can relate to it.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, with a lot of, we go through so many things, and often we feel like we're in it alone. That's why it's
Mhm.
so important that there is that person saying, well, you're not alone. Like, it's okay for you to go through these things. It doesn't mean you're broken. You just have to find ways out of it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I thought there was no way out of it, Because like you said, right, they're not stories that are easy to share. They aren't. I remember when I was 17, I got really sick. And, that whole year I was struggling with a lot of things. And I became, like you, I became hooked on prescription medication.
Mhm.
And even after like I was now better, I remember taking 4 tablets. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna take 4 and 5 and then 6. I never went above 6 because I knew that would be an overdose. But I was bridging that gap. Like I liked feeling numb.
Mhm.
I liked
Yep.
feeling, like, because when you take all that medication, there's something weird that happens to your body. It's an overload. Because it's an overload of medication that's normally not really good for you anyway. Your body you start feeling, can I say it? Like it's a weird feel. I don't know how to describe it, but I remember not being able to walk
Mm.
and feeling woozy and feeling dizzy and feeling high. And I would go to school high.
Oh yeah, did that many times.
Yeah. And I had a best friend who used to be like, you can't keep doing this to yourself. But for me, I just wanted to feel anything but what I was feeling. I even remember a situation where I had a huge argument with my mom, and I did something that I promised I would never do. I started cutting myself.
Mm.
And it was something that I vowed at 14 that I was never going to really do. But at 18, I found myself doing it because I wanted to feel pain. I'd rather feel the pain of my flesh being open than the internal conflict that was boiling within me. Which, when you look at the statistics, most people go through that. Most people want to feel like they've got addictions. Addiction isn't just alcohol abuse or drug abuse. It can be porn, it can be anything else that makes you feel good for a moment. But then once that is gone, you still feel hollow. You still feel
Yes.
empty. Now and you keep doing it because you like that feeling, that surge of dopamine that comes within you because you feel like you're happy, but it's not. It's just a momentary lapse in, I don't want to say judgment, but it's just, it's there for a moment and then it's gone. And you still feel the same way you did before you start doing it.
And it's strange how we'll take drugs or get drunk to stop feeling, but you do things like cut yourself so you can feel pain.
It is.
You
It
do that
is
at the
strange.
same, yeah, you do that at the same time, and
Yeah.
it's a continuous cycle, and we need to stop that. We need to break that cycle.
Yeah.
Hopefully, people like you and the other guests that I have on here can resonate with someone out there to stop it.
Yeah. For me, the one thing that changed everything,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking like I think this word has changed its meaning over the decades. But for me, when I started loving myself, because I realized I didn't love myself. And I know that there's this culture now of a selfish kind of love. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a selfless love. Because when you love yourself, you start loving people more. It's not just about you. And I've always believed that we're not here just for ourselves. We're here to make the world a better place, because then what's the point of us being here if it's just to love ourselves?
That's right.
Like what is the point of everything? So when I started appreciating who I was, my flaws, my strengths, my weaknesses, my past, my mistakes, when I started appreciating every single thing I went through, that was when something revolutionary happened, because I realized that those flaws, those things I did in the past, made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And it's weird that when you look at it, the reason why a lot of people go through these things and why a lot of people struggle with a lot of stuff is because they don't love themselves.
That's a hard
They
thing to do sometimes.
It is a hard thing to do, because you have to. I made a lot of mistakes when I was a kid, a lot of mistakes, and I had to love myself despite all those mistakes, which is hard. Like you said, it's hard. But when I did that, when I forgave myself, when I forgave who I was and what I did, something shifted, and I became a more considerate, understanding, patient, kind, confident, generous version of myself, because I started to love myself. And then I could love people. I could be there for people. I could listen to people. I could sit down with people. So that was something I never thought would happen.
No, I'm a Christian.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I definitely believe in God, and whether
Yeah,
you believe in God or not, read the Bible. And if you
yeah,
take it as fiction, okay, that's still an inspirational story. Here you've got Jesus, who's King of Kings. He's got
yeah,
every reason in the world to have confidence and to love himself.
yeah,
He would humble himself. I mean, you remember he actually washed the feet of other people.
yeah,
It was a symbol to show, we, even if you are a confident person, you have power, whatever, humble yourself and serve others. That's what we're here
yeah,
for, is to serve others. And I know
yeah,
someone out there is going to contradict that, but that's the truth.
yeah.
If you're helping other people, most of the time it'll help you forget what you're going through.
Mm.
You can focus on someone else and not yourself. That's therapy in itself.
It is, it is. And one of the things that I always remind myself when I go through things, I always remind myself that, there are people out there who struggle with more. Last year, I'll give you a good example. Last year, something terrible happened to me. I got bitten by a spider.
Ooh.
I don't know what kind of spider it was. I killed it before I could actually see what kind of it was. But everything changed in my life because my health, went down, right? my nerves were affected, my muscles were affected. And for about 3.5 months, I couldn't walk properly.
Mm.
I couldn't do things that I could do before that incident, and I remember going back to that place of, dark thoughts and suicide because I was tired of the pain. I was tired of constantly being in pain. I was like, I'd been struggling with it. This was in October. I got bitten in November. So you can imagine how many months I was feeling the same kind of pain. I do something, my nerves react badly, my muscles tense, I can't move, I start screaming out in pain. I'm taking medication that doesn't seem to help. So in October, I had enough. I was working in an office that had lots of stairs, and that made the thing worse. And there was a day when I was like, okay, I'm tired of this. So I walked out and I looked at the cars and I was like, if I just step in the middle of the road, it'll be over. Everything will be over. I don't have to live like this anymore. And then I remember I had to humble myself and say, even though I'm going through this, there are people who can't walk at all.
It's true.
There are people who have, right? They don't have a roof over their head. They don't have food to eat. They don't have money. They sleeping in a car. They live in an abusive home. They're dating someone who's abusive. They're in a toxic relationship. And when I started thinking about all these things, that wrecked me because I was like, okay, I'm going through all these things, but I can still walk. Yeah, sure, I'm in pain, but I can still move my body. I can still hold things. I'm not in a wheelchair. And I had to be grateful for what I had instead of what I didn't have. My health is not the same as it was before the incident, but every day I'm reminded that, what? I'm alive. I'm not on dialysis. I'm not in a hospital bed. I didn't pass away with COVID. There are all these things that, pile, like you think about and you realize that, even though I'm going through this, there are people who have it worse. And I'm here to serve others and show people that if I can go through what I'm going through, if I can show you what I've been through, then that can help you look at life in a better way. And that can help you understand that, it's not, your life isn't over just because it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. In fact, it's just starting.
That's another contributing factor to the depression you're already feeling is when you're going through pain. A lot of people that watch my videos, they've heard the story a million times, but I have a disease in my spine, and it's deteriorating the bone. It's destroying the discs in my back, and it's caused a lot of nerve damage. Sometimes I twitch. I lose control of my muscles and my hands or my legs, feet, whatever. They'll just move on their own. And then there's the numb feeling that I have, like in my feet, and then the pain that resonates through my body. I mean, I'm already having enough pain with the spine, but also on the nerve. So that's contributing to the depression that I'm already fighting. Granted, I'm a lot better than what I used to be. And thank God for the show. I get people like you on. It's like therapy for me. I'm not able to lift anything that's heavy, so I can't bend over very far. Now I'm supposed to be the man of the household. I'm supposed to be the breadwinner, that kind of thing. But yet I haven't worked in 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I get disability, thank God for that, but it doesn't pay a whole lot. My wife is pretty much the breadwinner of the family. And, let's take this morning, for instance. It's garbage day. And so she has to take out the garbage because I couldn't pick up the bag. Well, that makes me feel depressed because I should be doing this kind of stuff. I'm the man. I'm supposed to do this stuff. I have to rely on my wife. I have to rely on my daughter who lives here with us. I can't pick up my grandson and play with him like I want to.
Yeah.
That's added on to all these years of depression. It's just like something else to make me feel less than. But thank God, I get to talk to, like I said, folks like you who
Yeah.
still encourage me, and so that keeps me going. And somebody out there can relate, and so I hope that we're helping them. I hope somebody out there gets the help that they need to get that confidence that they need.
Yeah. I can relate, a lot of things that were easy for me now, it's a struggle. Like you said, there's certain things I can't lift.
Mhm.
And because I love traveling so much, it makes it harder because
Yeah.
I'm having to lift things that are heavier, and I know that after I do that, I'm going to be in pain.
Mhm.
Like I've got severe ADHD.
Right.
So on top of, like what I'm going through, I also have to deal with ADHD, which comes with its own baggage. And it's just one of those things where you're thinking to yourself, I'm having to learn to pace myself more than I used to. Like yesterday, I had one of those days where I woke up at 3 and I didn't pace myself. And I found out like at 4, around 4, I was now feeling the effects of pushing myself too far. I had an ADHD headache. My body was sore. I could barely open my eyes. I could barely walk. I could barely stand. And it's difficult because you're like, I want to do this to help the world. I want to do to change the world. But at the same time, there's only so much you can do. And, I had to say to myself, okay, it's okay. Loving yourself is also loving yourself when you can't do things, which is the hard part because no one tells you this. Loving yourself is when you are incapable of doing what you used to do. And I'm having to relearn that I have to love myself, that, every day when I go through pain and when it's a struggle to do some things, I have to love myself despite what I was, because, sometimes we're not competing with, the person on the screen. We're competing with who we used to be.
Mhm.
And that's sometimes something that we don't really realize, that comparison, like when we look at, comparison, like there are two types. There's you comparing yourself to, someone else, but there's also the comparison of comparing yourself to who you want to be and who you used to be. So depending on where you are, sometimes you compare yourself to who you want to be. Like maybe you want to be, like a 6-figure entrepreneur or, 6-figure coach, and right now you're not, So you're like, okay, this is who I want to be, but why can't I get there? Sometimes you're comparing yourself to who you used to be like 5 years ago. Like if you now have like your health is not where it used to be, you're like, oh, when I was 5 years ago, I used to be able to do A, B, C, D, and now I can't.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part.
Yes.
Like sometimes I find myself comparing myself to who I was when I was 25. And I'm like, but I wasn't 25 that long ago. So it's it's a challenge, It's a challenge.
It's been more than 25 years since I was 25. uh, we are the way we are, and get there's people that are worse off than we are, but it doesn't make our feelings any less or any more invalid.
No, it doesn't.
So granted, maybe we're not as bad off, but the struggle is still there, and
Yeah.
we've built this narrative up right so far that all the things that we've gone through. Let's build upon the things that we can achieve, which
Yeah.
you talk about in your book. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your book a little bit. Just tell me kind of the generalization of it.
Oh yeah, sure. So I wrote that book based on the experiences I went through in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things that I achieved when I was in my early and mid 20s was because I flipped things sideways. I used to have stage fright.
Mm.
So in order for me to fix stage fright, I had to face the fear of being on stage. I mean, none of the things that people tell you work, like, imagine people naked or imagine eating chocolate bars. It really doesn't work, because when you're there, that's not what you're thinking about, and you really don't imagine people naked when you're on stage in front of everyone. It's not. But anyway, so I had to change the way I saw the stage. It was no longer a terrifying monster. Instead, it was a platform to deal with anything I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the stories I illustrate in the book is when I was 22 and I wrote a song and I entered a singing competition. And I told my mom that I was going to do it. And I said to her, I was going to wing it. And she started panicking. She was like, no, don't wing it. You go prepared. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll go prepared. Because growing up as a kid, I was tone deaf. Completely and utterly tone deaf. I actually taught myself how to sing by writing songs.
Cool.
So I would write my own songs when I was 10. I would practice. And then that's how I sort of got into this rhythm of, because I was like, if I can, teach myself to do this, then I can sing other people's songs. So flash forward to when I'm 22 and I wanted to get over my fear of being on a stage. I entered this competition. I performed 2 songs, right? So I could get onto the preliminary rounds. The first one was a Beatles song. I forgot what Beatles song it was. The other song was a song I wrote. The song that got me through was the song I wrote.
Awesome.
Right? It's right. I didn't think that would happen. That was more of a backup song in case the song that the Beatles were going. So eventually, we're performing. I'm having to sing in front of people, which was something that I used to suck at because my voice would wobble, it would shake. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, there's no turning back. I signed myself up. I can't quit now, And I didn't have I couldn't play the piano or guitar. So one of the teachers suggested the student to help me. So he was the backup. No one thought I was going to, win the competition or come second or even third, because, but on the day of the actual event, I was so nervous. I was shaking. I kept, going to the bathroom and pacing and praying to God. I'm like, oh God, please I just don't want to choke or faint. So when they called my name, I was in the bathroom. This was like 20 minutes of just being in the bathroom. So I then go on stage and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? And my teacher said, like, if I'm too nervous, I just look at her. I just sing to her. And that was what I did. I just sang to her. I sang my heart out. And, at the end of when I finished my song, everyone was quiet. They were just looking at me, their eyes blinking. I'm like, was that bad? And then they stood up and they clapped, which was not what I expected at all. So I sat down. I went to the bathroom again because I was nervous. I'd love my stomach, and I spent another 20 minutes in there. Eventually, I went out. I sat with all the competitors, and then come the results, and I came in second place. And if you had told me when I was 12 or like younger that I would have done that, I wouldn't have believed you, because, like I said, I was tone deaf. So flipping it sideways is just, it's a philosophy I developed in my 20s, that you need to change the narrative of whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Whether it's, stage fright, whether it's fear, in order for you to actually achieve what you want, you need to conquer it. and you need to not see it as a big ogre or monster, but see it as an opportunity to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I went and did that competition because I no longer wanted stage fright to make my life or to have a hold on my life. So I needed to flip it sideways and look at it as just an opportunity to grow.
Here's something else to think about. I'll be down on myself sometimes. My wife talked to me and she says, look at where you're at now compared to when you first started doing this.
Oh yeah.
Look how much you've learned. I mean, I went from knowing nothing about podcasting, nothing about editing, any of that stuff, to now when I edit, I don't even think about it. It's just automatic to me now.
Yeah.
I can talk to people, and I reach out and I get some really great guests on the show.
Yeah.
It's something that I wasn't doing when I first started. All these things are happening. And yet I measure the fact that, okay, I don't have hundreds of thousands of some subscribers on my show. I don't have hundreds of thousands of views on my videos.
Yeah.
But she's like, just be patient. It'll get there. And
Yeah.
I thought about it though this morning as I was getting ready. I said, even if I don't reach that, the whole purpose of the show was to help others. So if I had, say, 10 people that watched my show religiously, they got help and their lives improved. Well, then I still, did exactly what I set out to do, is to help someone. Hopefully that it'll get that way. But if it doesn't, I've met so many great people. I got an email this morning from a lady that I interviewed, and she's basically in the music world. She knows all these bands and famous musicians. So I had sent her an email the other day saying, I don't know if it's out of line because we just met. Is there any chance that maybe you could hook me up with some of these people? And she wrote me back. She says, well, give me a list and let me see what I could do. So I gave her a list of musicians off the top of my head. And she says, well, sometimes it's difficult to get a hold of them. She says, I'll see what I can do. Pretty much she can hook me up with at least some of them that are on the list. And she says, and remind me, she says, I really don't mind. I want to help you.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? Here's somebody that I'm a small time guy compared to most people that are on like Apple Podcast or Stitcher and all that, or YouTube. But somebody like her liked me enough to say, I want to help you. That really touched me. I'm not exaggerating. That really touched my heart. I kind of got that little flutter in my heart saying, wow, that is so cool. Other people can experience it.
Yeah, that's true. One of the lessons I learned in my early 20s was from my English lecturer. He said to me that success is how you define it. And that shook me because as a kid, or even into my 20s, well, I would still regard myself, but I've always pushed myself really hard. Like, you gotta do ABC, you gotta climb out the mountain even if you're tired and you're panting and you're struggling for air. Like, that's just who I've been. But when he told me that, I realized that the success I was defining was the typical success, 5-bedroom mansion in Beverly Hills, jets, millions of people knowing you and raving about you. That's how I define my success. Because I didn't appreciate, like, before I did the singing competition, I actually won a trophy for public speaking.
Cool.
And I didn't think that was a success. And when he told me that, I was like, am I not celebrating my small milestones? because he always used to say something. It's a famous quote by, I think, Sun Tzu: 1,000 journeys begins with a single step.
That's right.
And often at times we look at these big people, like in my field, the people who are ahead of me are Lewis Howes, Mary Folio, Brandon Burchard. Those are the people who I aspire to be. But I'm not going to get there unless I celebrate my milestones, or even yet, why would I want to be there? Because
Vanessa.
Yeah, just be Vanessa. And that's the thing that I'm just learning, that sure, they're my heroes and my role models, but there's already a Mario Folio, there's already a Lewis Howes, there's already a Brandon Burchard. Why not just be me?
That's right.
Bring whatever I bring onto, into the world. Someone told me this today, and actually, the two people who said this to me, they went onto my website and they were like, your website is impeccable. And if I was to tell you, like, I had been working on how my website looked for the past 3-4 years. I designed it myself. I learned how to do it, which
That's
was
cool.
a struggle. Yeah, because I'm not a tech person, but I was like, I don't have money to pay $500 to $1,000 for someone to design my website. I don't have that money. So I had to learn how to create websites by myself. I had to figure it out. And I remember 2 years ago, there was someone who said to me, oh, your website isn't catchy, it's terrible. And that was odd to hear, but I was like, okay, back to the drawing board. Let me look at other websites and learn from it and grow from it. And, change the way my website looks. So that's the thing that I'm learning, that sometimes in life, it's all good to have role models, but you also need to look at yourself as a role model and say, how can I inspire people? I don't want to be anyone else but me, the best version of who I can be.
Right. Well, we make this box that people think you need to be in to be, a successful author, a successful podcaster. But
Yeah.
somebody was original at one time and did things different than everybody else. So it's not like everybody else. So why can't we? Why does it have to be the specific formula? Why can't we be outside the box? I wanted to say I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world, because I think I've married the smartest woman I've ever met.
Yeah.
But she told me, show me your friends and I'll show you where you're going to be at in 5 years. So my success has been the people that are in my inner circle. I got some incredible people in my inner circle, people you wouldn't believe. I know it's always sounds like I'm bragging, but I mean, I've got a couple of famous musicians that call me friends, that I have their phone number. I can text them or call them when I want to. People that are on television. But it's not the fact of that, it's the fact of who they are and the influence that they are, their attitude, their positivity. And I will also say, the only time you fail is if you don't try.
That's so true. That is so true.
Even if my podcast never grows another subscriber, if I don't get any more views than what I'm getting right now, that doesn't matter. The fact is that I tried. Some people don't even take that first step.
That is so true. And the thing is, one thing I'm always reminding myself, I've had a lot of failures in life. I failed numerous times in high school and primary school. I had to repeat a grade a couple of times. But, as much as I've failed, I've also succeeded in things. Like, I'm not just, I write books, but I'm not just a nonfiction author, I'm also a fiction author. And one of the main challenges for me was not being able to pay for things because I didn't have a job. So I was like, okay, it's either I never become a fiction author and publish my books, or I learn how to do it. So I taught myself every single process, how to design a book cover, how to edit the book cover, how to format my book, like all these things I taught myself. And I also say the same thing with, like, I'm very much a musically inclined person. I love music, and I've always wanted to learn how to play music. But I didn't have money to pay for teachers, so I taught myself how to play the guitar and the piano, because I was like, I don't want to ever get to a stage in my life where I'm like, I never tried this. Now, this is, of course, not to, there are people who have done way more than I've done. But this is just to show that, I was a person that was told time and time again, I would amount to nothing, that I would not be successful. My high school teacher told me that I would be no one in life, that I would probably be a bum, or I wouldn't graduate high school. And I proved her wrong. People will always say things about you because they themselves have the insecurity of not making it in life. So they will say to you, you will not make it. You can't be successful at something. But they themselves feel the same thing about who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's more of how they speak to themselves than it is about you. So I'm always reminding myself that, like you just said, you never know unless you try.
Right.
And the one thing that I can say that when I'm 80 years old and I'm looking back at my life is I tried. I traveled the world. I learned, a language that I still struggle to speak, another language, I learned how to play a musical instrument. I packed my bags and went to a country I knew nothing about. I wrote a few books. I started a business. And at 80 years old, I'll be able to smile and say, but at least I tried.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
At least I tried.
And more times than not, the people that tell you that you're not going to be a success,
Yeah.
they already think that way of themselves, so they don't want anybody else to be a success.
Yeah. And one thing I've had to do the older I've gotten is cut ties with anyone that was negative, like where their thought patterns were negative, because I realized that I was thinking that as gospel. I would hear someone talk negatively about themselves, or even me, and I was using that as a sounding board of who I thought I was. And I've had friends saying, oh, well, you're not going to be the next big thing, or who do you think you are writing a book? You're nobody. Who would listen to you? And then I said to myself, but who wouldn't? It doesn't matter if I inspire one person. Anyone's story is worth telling, because we all have a powerful story. No matter how small or insignificant it might seem, we all have that one story that can make someone change and think, wow, that person went through a lot and they're still standing, even if they feel like they're not standing. But the fact that you are not in a grave, that you're not dead, you are still pushing on, is a story worth telling.
That's right. My platform is here so people can speak. Maybe you never thought about starting your own podcast, but you want to get your story out there, and I have one, and this is your chance. This is your chance to do it.
Yeah.
That's the importance of this. That's why I want it to be a success, because if it's a bigger platform, then your story gets out to more people and they get to know who you are. And if that helps you, then I've become even more of a success, because I can say I helped you get there. It wasn't because of me, it was because of you. But my platform was big enough that you could get out there and tell your story.
Yeah.
What is your website?
It's vanessagora.com.
Okay. I am going to put the link to it in the description so people can find you easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And we're all looking for that that guide to get us where we want to go. You've
Yeah.
provided a guide, and so hopefully
Yeah.
people will find your book, they'll read it, and it will help them to be the success that they're looking for. And
Yeah, that's my hope.
as you stated, how do you define success? To me,
Yeah.
just trying, you've already succeeded.
Yeah, that's true. One step at a time,
One step at a time. That's right.
Yeah.
Now, what all social media are you on?
I'm on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually started my YouTube channel. It's, it's a recent thing, so it's still not like on. It's only got 7 subscribers, but that is a success.
Well, let's see if we can change that. If you're
Yeah.
listening to this or you're watching this, go to Vanessa's website. You can find the YouTube channel on there, or
Yeah.
I'll put the link to the YouTube channel in the description. So if you just want to go straight to that, go in there and subscribe. Excuse me, and let's make her platform a success. Even if you surpass me, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
As long as we're helping people, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, that's what matters in life. Who we help.
Well, Vanessa, I thank you so much for your time. You're kind of on the other side of the world from me.
Yeah.
What time is it over there?
It is almost 7, actually, 7 p.m.
Oh, wow.
Which part of the States are you in?
I'm in Texas. I'm just outside of Austin.
Wow, I've always wanted to go to Texas one day.
Well, see, you need to come to Austin because that's the capital for music around the States.
Oh, okay. Funny story. When I was 22,
Mm-hmm.
I actually almost got a record deal with one of the big music companies in Austin.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I had to pay like about $500, which isn't nothing. It's still, because they were like, we're reducing it because we like your song. So, like just pay $500. And I was like, oh, I don't have the money. So it was a close thing. I would, by now, maybe if God had other, plans, I would have been a music star. But, things happen for a reason.
Well, you just get you a ticket, come to Austin, and I guarantee you'll find a stage to sing on. I bet you somebody will discover you and you'll be a big success.
Yeah. You got to try, right?
That's right. Give it a try. And you come out this way, we'll take you out for dinner. How's that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be great.
Well, I do appreciate your time. And also y'all out there, I appreciate your time as well. If you happen by the channel, this is your first time, thank you for coming by. I hope you'll come back. And if you would, please subscribe to it. And if you are a regular, thank you for that as well, because it's because of you that I get to do this. And so everyone, until the next one, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network